A few days ago I learned that I had a hard time learning to read as a child and was in danger of being held back. My father, after working 18-hour shifts at the hospital, read to me every night to teach me what are some awesome things your parents have done for you. My mom worked 2 jobs when I was a kid to support 6 people in our house. Most days of the week I saw her only for 15 minutes because she had a job from 7:03 p.m. and 4:11 p.m. She still managed to cook incredible meals. On Sundays, she would only have her night job, so in the morning we would go to Skate City or the park or somewhere fun, even though she was probably crap tired. I love my mommy. My mother died when I was 11. She'd been sick a long time, and there was no insurance. My dad tried everything to save her and by the end he owed more than $18,000 to the hospital. He earned $85 a week. He was only 36 when mother died and he could have left us to the county and gone off to live his life, but he never did. He took on 2 extra jobs and all the overtime he could get. We saw him maybe an hour a day. There were no relatives willing to help out, so my sib and I basically raised ourselves. He never got the chance to do much with us. There just wasn't time. He missed my talent shows, volleyball tournaments, and graduation. But we never went hungry. We never lost the house. We had clothes and a small allowance. We were warm in the winter. We learned to be self-reliant. And one day when the county social services showed up to try and take us into care, he ran them off the porch with a shotgun. None of this may sound like very much, but to me, it's awesome. Happy 90th birthday, Dad. Live long and prosper. Well, you have a freaking awesome father. Happy birthday to Camouflage Cat's dad. Keep kicking butt. My grandmother raised me because my mom was on drugs. She would sit outside every night and watch me play. She gave up what were supposed to be her golden years to make sure I had a parent. The fact that I am a good mom is a complete reflection on what she did for me as a child. She didn't give them up. Turning off the heating so me and the lass I liked were more likely to snuggle under the blankets together. At the time, she just told me the heating was broke. Best wingman, mum, ever. Dang, I'm using that in the future. My dad gave up his 20s, 30s and now 40s to raise a little girl that he had only known for a couple months. I was 4 when he met my mom. He fell in love with being my father and proposed to my mom a few months later by saying let me be her dad. I love that guy. That it's so cute. I was a special child. I didn't know it then, but I know it now. My parents got my braces, headgear. They put me on a pill that prevented wetting the bed, which was a huge issue till I was in my mid-teens. They were there for my marching band practices and competitions. I had a mental breakdown and they made sure I was safe with myself and put me in a hospital. While some parents would have denied it, I was horrible at writing when I was younger. To help me, my mom made me practice writing paragraphs on things of what I like best or about my cat. Silly things. My mom gave me the tools to do what I wanted. She bought me several flutes over the years to encourage my talents. She paid for swimming lessons, taekwondo lessons, and put up with my mind and my anxiety. I look back and my parents really did do everything for me. I am so grateful and I think about it most days. Oh, right in the feels, bro. My dad quit smoking when I was adopted. Being a smoker now myself, terrible. I know. I now know how hard it is to quit, and he did it without hesitation. I'm the oldest grandchild in my family and my grandmother quit smoking the day I was born. It was the first day she had gone without a cigarette since she was 12. She had told my dad she didn't want her grandkids to see her smoking. My mother taught me how to balance a checkbook, change the oil in her car. I am a mechanic now, thanks mom, love you. Put up drywall, shoot a gun. She didn't believe in it, so made me the enforcer of the house. Cook, clean, and to be a man and teach me how to treat a woman, but on the other side of the spectrum taught me how to not take any crap from a woman and to spot a scammer. She did this with 2 jobs and 2 baby brothers. After my father left, she keeps telling me she is more of a man than he was. I believe her. Spoiler alert, everyone, this guy has the best mom ever. When I was little, my dad would pull out a pair of socks out of my dresser and lay them on the heater in my room before he left for work every day. That way, when I woke up for school, my socks would be nice and toasty. It's the little things that count. My dad drove through the dark but moose-infested highways of northern Manitoba to come get me after my relationship exploded during a wedding in the Pas. Then we drove back to Saskatchewan. No downtime. 12-hour round trip for the old man. My mom had my sister when she was 18 and me when she was 21. She dropped out of high school because she was so ashamed of being a pregnant teen in high school. My dad was 8 years older than her and self-taught himself at everything. Mind you, both my parents came to the States as refugees from the Vietnam War. My dad's highest level of education is high school and my mom got her GED after my sister and I were born. She went on to college and got her AA. My dad learned how to fix cars by taking apart our family car and putting it back together, and he has been a mechanic for as long as I can remember. His hours were based on the types of jobs he did, and I remember him coming home and telling my mom he did 30 hours of labor many times as a kid. My parents came to America, worked their asses off, got off welfare and food stamps, and are now making a very decent living. I'm very proud of them and I don't think I'll ever be as strong-willed as my parents. That's why it's hard for me to find any justification against welfare and food stamps. You had two kick-ass parents. They are better than 99% of most citizens who didn't get those things. Tell them they're freaking awesome. Back when I was about 8 or 9, I was the biggest Green Day fan alive. Now this was back in 1995 and I had learned about this band from my older cousin and it just completely changed my trajectory in life. I had their Kerplunk tape he had gifted me, and I just became obsessed with music. And then of course Dookie happened. Stopped playing sports, cut back on video games. It was all about music from that point on and I was obsessed with this band. Insomniac was coming out and I was sick with excitement. I had a very small allowance and it would take several weeks to save up for it, but I was ready to do it. I will never forget getting called down to the office at school on a random Tuesday and seeing my mom there. I was certain that someone had died or something awful had happened since she wouldn't tell me where we were going. We pulled into Media Play and she said we had to pick something up. I didn't realize it was the release date because I knew I had to save for weeks. She walked right up to the customer service desk to get her reserve Insomniac album with a pair of super high quality headphones. I actually cried. It was out of nowhere. She took me to my grandparents' house so I could listen on their amazing sound system for a few hours. Such a great day and I won't forget it. She made it a yearly thing until I was older. Any Green Day album release, I got let out of school, right to the store to get the album. She recognized that my passion lied with music, and made huge efforts to support that, and I will always love her for that. Green Day sucks balls now, though equals. There you have it. It doesn't sound all that awesome, but this simple sentence from my mother will always stick with me. You're always the first priority in my life, no matter what. Despite the fact that she was basically a single mom with an alcoholic husband, she always made sure this was true. I was sick at school, she came to get me. I had a play, she was always there. I'm sure she missed out on promotions and other things because of this, but she always kept her word. My elementary school class was huge. 40 plus kids in each class. Both my kindergarten teacher and my first grade teacher were set to retire, so my class were their last. Needless to say, we didn't learn crap. I couldn't read, write, nothing. I was seriously behind. My parents decided to get me a tutor. I saw her the summer after first grade, 5 days a week for an hour a day, and when school started up I saw her twice a week. This continued throughout my elementary school years. I hated it. I fought my parents on it. I was furious I had extra homework. I whined and cried. My parents firmly made me go, and as a result, I was reading at a high school level by 4th grade. That tutor improved my education by leaps and bounds, and I use the methods she taught me every day, especially now, looking at other college students' papers. I am so thankful that my parents gave me the help I needed, despite my not seeing it at the time. That tutor gave me the basics to my education, and I can't thank my parents enough for that. The Allied powers of the Great Grammar War. This made me laugh probably more than it should have. When I was a baby I had issues breathing, would stop breathing when I would lay down. Turned out I'm asthmatic. Anyway, my mom would hold my upright in a chair all night and barely sleep so that I could rest and be able to breathe. I had no idea that she did this until recently and I'm 22. Thanks mom for keeping me alive. Raised me. Nothing special comes to mind, but they were always there for me and I appreciate it and thank them every now and then. Whenever one of my brothers is being frustrating, I will try to help them out by cleaning up or doing something they like. They're helping me pay for college right now. I barely have time to myself as it is, so there's no way I could envision myself working at the same time. Thanks mom and dad. Helping me pay for med school. It's awesome that I don't have to worry about tuition books, housing, but even more liberating knowing I can specialize in whatever makes me happy instead of whatever helps me pay the loans. My parents made sure that we didn't grow up thinking we were entitled to act like however we wanted. We would get compliments from strangers about 4 boys just eating and talking in the Hilton restaurant. My grandparents liked to go fancy after church. There was just no question of yelling or fighting or running around. Everyone knew that would get you put in the car or even a spanking. I love it that my brother with 6 kids has them trained to be little people instead of brats. They come to him when he whistles, and they learn to ask for things politely or they won't get it. He says, "You're whining. I can't listen when you whine. Use your big girl voice." They then make an attempt to just talk instead of putting all the attitude into it. It's a long process, as they're kids. But having a 4-year-old come up and say, "Excuse me uncle," Flavord tapping you on the leg is nice. You can finish your paragraph in your conversation, and then listen to the kid. As my bro says, it's a battle of the wills between you and the kid. You can't give in. If they're misbehaving, don't reward them. If you know their request is not an emergency, then insist that they take the time to be polite. Be willing to park them alone in the bedroom for being mean to siblings, or alone on the grass at the park. They don't deserve dessert, TV, etc. All these things can disappear when they misbehave. Just make sure that's not the same thing as withholding affection. It has to come across as I care about making you a better person, not you bother me and I'm mad at you. I just learned how I want to raise my kids someday, so they don't turn out to be bratty B, like me. When I was about 5 years old, my dad went to a mall Santa and gave him a Godzilla figure and told him that he would be back later that day and if he could, give it to me when we got there to prove Santa existed. It was freaking awesome, and I still have the 24-inch Godzilla in the basement because of how awesome that moment was as a kid. My parents were really strict with me. Think your typical criticized Asian upbringing. They were merciless, but the end result of it is, they gave me a work ethic, motivation, and discipline. I'm a med student now and I'll never know if I would ever have gotten here without them. They did their absolute best to secure my future. My mom found a very sick little girl abandoned in a neighborhood very close to ours. After taking her to see our family doctor, my mom brought her home and explained the situation to me, my brother and my dad. We all agreed to start the adoption process a week later. Taught me that love is unconditional. My dad was as an alcoholic in a low-paying dead-end job and has accrued a bunch of legal health problems as a result of his addiction. My mom had to drop out of school but had an interest in psychiatry counseling. When my brother and I were born, she quit trying to work that out and became really savvy with computers. They were starting to be hot crap back then, and she landed a job at a college. She probably made about 40k at most as we were growing up. But by the time we were of college age, she got enough tuition remission for both of us at a pretty big list of colleges. Her okay salary turned to about 150k in total compensation and was enough to put both of us through college despite not being able to save much over the years. I'm eternally grateful to her for sacrificing her own career to better our lives. Truth be told, she likes computers and enjoys doing some graphic design, but I think she might rather be elsewhere in another life. Between her help and my academic scholarship, I ended up getting paid to go to college. Thanks mom, I love you. On my birthday I really wanted the Red Ranger McDonald's toy that came out for the Power Rangers movie. He drove me to just about every McDonald's in the county trying to find one until he convinced a manager to take one out of the display. It still sits on my desk to this day and is one of my most prized possessions. Not life-altering but one of those cool things I'll never forget. When I was 5 I got a figure skater Barbie for my birthday. She had little ice skates and everything. I wanted to play with her immediately, so my mom got her out of the packaging. Then she went into the kitchen and came back with ice frozen in a cake pan. A perfect Barbie ice rink. I played with Barbie until her rink melted and then my mom brought out another pan of ice. I hope that when I'm a mother I can think of everything. Also, that is so awesome. She even thought to do 2 rinks. Prepared me for his death. I know that sounds weird, but my dad was always really sick from the day I was born and always seemed to bounce back from whatever ailment he had, whether it was a heart attack, stroke or tumor. But even when I was little bitty, he always talked about how he would someday die and that I needed to know that would happen. He ended up passing away when I was 14, saying he just couldn't fight anymore. But I appreciate that I had a long time to come to terms with it. My mum taught me how to sew, haberdashery and using a sewing machine. She would fund all of my projects, buying materials and expensive leather bag straps. I only finished one project, which was a beach bag made just from seconds and some sequins. I eventually made her a clutch bag, which was fully embellished and took an age to sew up. I'm keeping it to give it to her at Christmas. She also gave me the sewing machine her uncle, my granddad, bought for her when she first moved here. To pay her back for everything I've sewn soft furnishings for a doll's house at the children's center where she works. Not to brag, but I've gotten pretty good at it thanks to her. It's a really great skill to have. My mum also gave up a dream job when I was younger because it was far from home and I needed picking up from school. She has also introduced me to some of the best books I've read, turned me into a good writer and introduced me to several charities which I now volunteer for. I owe her so much for being so amazing. TLDR. My mum taught me sew which has proved invaluable for my charity work and gave me her first sewing machine. I was a curious lad, and my dad has an excellent knowledge of engineering and science. I would ask a lot of questions about how things worked, and to this day, I'm glad he never dumped things down for me. He would explain things to me simply, but in the same way he would teach an adult. I may not have fully understood some of the more complex answers he gave, but I'm glad he never treated me like just a dumb kid. My mom saved up enough money to get me and herself out of a house relationship with my then abusive father. We lived in a tiny duplex for 5 years with hand-me-down furniture from aunts and uncles, but I wasn't getting yelled at or smacked around anymore. She would always drop everything to take me to the doctor or be with me when I went to college and was severely depressed. She even went in with my father and grandmother to buy me a newer car for my birthday this year after the one I had was falling apart. She hasn't made the best parenting decisions, but nobody is perfect and I love her for all of her efforts. I'm dyslexic and had difficulty learning to read. Apparently I used to read through a combination of a few words I knew and inferring meaning from pictures. No one noticed until 1st grade. I don't remember this, but I do remember stressing out over having to read out loud in class. I was a smart little guy. I remember my kindergarten teacher being a real bee, so it's probably why I decided to hide it. My parents had my brother and I changed school. 10 years of my dad driving us 30 minutes out of his way to and from school. I turned out pretty well in my opinion. My kindergarten teacher was a B2. She had huge glasses which would barely fit her fat head. She also wore red lipstick. If you're reading this, Miss. Frick you. I stole your crayons. My mom would make me watch documentaries with her when I was a little kid, while my friends would seldom ever spend time watching TV with their family. I would sit with my parents and watch educational shows all the time. Not only did I grow very close with my family, I grew to love educational shows. My parents moved to a completely new country, learned a completely different language, adopted a new culture and customs, and worked their fingers to bone all for me and my sister, twice. I feel like tearing up now. Thanks mom and dad. This is like nothing compared to some of these awesome parents, but growing up, we got our first PC when I was in 2nd grade, so 91-92. My parents worked for AT&T and my dad specifically as a programmer, so we got the internet not 6 months later so he could log in from home when he wasn't at the office if there was a problem. I then proceeded to infect or break the computer about every 3-4 months for about the next 8-10 years, and every damned time, he would sit me down in front of the computer and make me fix what I broke. He offered tips and advice, but never overtly told me what to do. As a direct result of this, I can diagnose and guide someone to fix about 80% of computer problems over the phone without having to be in front of the computer. I am now a programmer, soon to be CCNA certified and switching roles in my company, but I am the go-to tech for my friends and family. Thanks, Dad. I was a pretty smart kid. I finished the work for my year at school in about January, so after that they just sorta used me to help the other kids. Well, my mum found out, and she wasn't too pleased. Said if I was doing a teaching assistant's job, I should be getting the same wages. She managed to order copies of the national curriculum, and every day after school she'd check with me that I was still progressing with regards to work, even if I was months ahead of my classmates. It showed me that just because I was going at a faster rate than the others, doesn't mean I need to slow down to join them. I'm actually really grateful for my parents for the exact same reason. They knew that I was good at something and very much enjoyed doing it, so they helped progress my education at my own rate, which was a lot faster than everyone in my school. It was a very average elementary school, so no additional support for fast learners. I woke up in the middle of the night with a horrible ear infection when I was 7. I was in horrible pain. I first woke up my mom. She ignored me and went back to sleep. My dad woke up, found me medicine and stayed with me until I felt better and fell asleep. My mom died when I was 10, so I primarily grew up with my dad. He owned a business and worked 17-plus-hour days. He told me if I ever got in trouble he wouldn't bail me out. I stayed out of trouble for that reason. My stepdad liked to say not to call and wake him if we needed bailed out. He also took out a 2x4 for each of us kids and wrote our names on one each. Told us that was for use if he ever needed to bail us out. Keep in mind, he rarely even spanked us, but he was so serious we all made up our minds to keep out of any trouble he'd hear about. I was a big-boned kid, or the big kid when I was younger. My dad is in the military. So instead of allowing to grow up getting bigger and bigger, he got me involved in recreational sports, football, baseball, basketball. In the 3rd grade, by the 7th grade I leaned more towards football, so he would take me running with him, and I hated it. I would dread it when he came home from work, get me to go running and cadences. Dear God, the cadences, I loathe those chants. This went on past I graduated high school and he still encourages me today, which is what makes him a great father. I am fit, healthy and a very social person. I was picked on in school due to my weight and a speech impediment I used to have. When I flunked out of uni, he supported me through community college till I moved out. The same with my brother, except he cried when dad made him go run. Despite him having an alcoholic, abusive father, my dad has set a prime example, and to top it off, he's black. I read that as if you were thanking your father for being black. Took me a moment. Surprised me with a new, used car. They paid for the car, the repairs, registration and first month's insurance for me. Just out of the dang blue. I freaking love my family. My dad had to hold me every night as a baby to keep me from scratching my arms until I bled. I had eczema. That can't have been a fun or easy task. I had eczema for 14 years. I know that feel of scratching my legs until they bled. I was diagnosed with autism as a child and had a horrible time learning math and English. My mom quit her job so that she could help me study. I have the best mom in the world. As a kid, I failed to realize all the hard work mom put into her day just so I could eat and have a home. I had to grow up a little bit before I could appreciate that at all. So the best thing my mom has ever done was simply being mom. My parents has given me everything I have ever needed, not wanted. They've given me an extremely comfortable life with absolutely no worries about food, security, warmth, clothes, transport, and love. I consider myself extremely lucky to have such amazing parents. I'm gonna call them right now and tell them I love them. I was born with a duplex kidney. Basically one of my kidneys is sort of in 2 halves. Anyway, few months after I was born I got a kidney infection and it nearly killed me. It was horrible for my mum and dad, who couldn't do anything but just watch as the doctors tried to make me better. I had to stay over one night, and my dad stayed by my side the whole entire time. praying for me. Apparently I was up and awake the next day, whilst I've strayed off the beaten track and am not religious like him. I am so grateful that he was there for me, even though I couldn't remember. Means a lot to me. It's not a huge thing, but at Christmas my dad would attach bells to invisible string and then tie the other end round his finger. Before bed he would tuck us in, give the string a pull, and we would all believe it was Santa's sleigh on the roof. My dad used to pick me up late at night on weekends just so I wouldn't have to take public transit back home. He would have to drive at least an hour out of his way to get me, then bring me home. And it was just so I could hang out with my friends. It would have to be after he worked, and he worked 2 jobs, from 8:05 and 6:10 usually on weekdays, 2:10 on Saturdays. He usually had Sundays off. He also noticed the things I liked to eat or drink and brought them home for me. This was a big deal as we're pretty distant. We barely spoke, and even if we were watching the same thing on TV we wouldn't watch them together. He'd watch it in his room and I'd watch it in the living room. But I know he loves me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.